My brother.
Mars, Graham? Your brother's on Mars?
No, stupid. He's in Korea. I'm sending him a radio message using Mars.
What's Mars?
Mars is the military affiliate radio system. What Mars does is let family and friends send radio messages to loved ones deployed around the world. And it's free.
Can I try it?
Sure. Go to the Mars website, asc.army.mil/Mars, and click on Marsgrams.
asc.army.mil/Mars.
If you're on your first tour of Europe, you can help give life by rocking and rolling up your sleeve at your local DoD Blood Center.
With new restrictions in effect for blood donors, now more than ever, donors serving their first tour of Europe are needed to keep blood supplies up.
Contact the USERA Blood Donation Center at DSN 486-7107 for information about donating or sponsoring a blood drive.
Help keep the DoD blood supply up. Roll up your sleeve, drain your vein, give life, be a blood donor. And for all who give life,
thank you.
This is Earth and Sky with a story about an alien catfish.
The flathead catfish grows huge. It's prized as a trophy fish by anglers in the U.S. This fish is native to the Mississippi River drainage area. But since the 1950s, the flathead has been introduced as a sport fish to over a dozen states in the U.S. Tom Kwok, a researcher at North Carolina State University, told us the downside of that idea.
If you look at this fish, it's all a big mouth and then a big stomach, and there's really not much else to the fish. And fishes in the Mississippi River drainage area, they've evolved with this fish, and there's a combination of factors between the habitat and the way other fishes evolved in that system that keep the fish assemblage there very diverse and very healthy. But when all of a sudden you introduce this eating machine into another river, the consequences are bad. We start to see other species suffering, and we get a less complex fishery, the diversity goes down, and that's just an unhealthy system overall.
More about studying the flathead catfish and a way to stop its spread tomorrow. Thanks today to the U.S. Forest Service and to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, supporting the conservation of native fish, wildlife, plants, and their habitats. I'm Deborah Bird with Joel Block for Earth and Sky.
The Osgood File, Charles Osgood on the CBS radio network. Proving a negative is difficult, and for Iraq especially so, given Saddam Hussein's sorry record.
Has Saddam Hussein changed his behavior of the last 11 years? So far, the signs are not encouraging.
The White House says if he says he doesn't, that proves he does. Spokesman Ari Fleischer.
Let's see what he says. If he declares he is none, then we will know that Saddam Hussein is once again misleading the world.
Pants on fire. Iraq says that anybody who says Iraq is lying is lying.
All what has been said and all what has been written about the country is a false lie.
The UN inspectors made a snap inspection today of one of Saddam Hussein's many palaces, a day after not finding some equipment that was supposed to have been at a former missile plant. The Iraqis say some of that was destroyed in a bombing raid in 1998 and that they moved the rest. The inspectors want to know where exactly and why exactly.
The inspectors are not in Iraq to play hide-and-seek with Mr. Saddam Hussein.
President Bush says the inspectors don't have to prove anything.
The responsibility of inspectors is simply to confirm the evidence of voluntary and total disarmament. It is Saddam Hussein who has the responsibility to provide that evidence.
Iraq has to provide a full accounting of its weaponry by Sunday.
It can't seem that we're rushing to war. I mean, I think that December 8th is one of the, it's a marker on the road to war, in my opinion. But we can't seem eager about it. We have to let the process run its course.
Fawad Ajami, an astute observer of the Middle East, says inspectors do have to prove something, to find something. And if they don't?
If it comes to that and we discover that he doesn't have much there, then the opportunity for regime change is forfeited.
The Osgood File, Charles Osgood on the CBS radio network.
So many things in life are beyond our control.
The changing of the seasons.
Traffic.
Earthquakes.
But certainly not everything is left up to fate. You have choices in life, like choosing not to drink alcohol and drive. That decision could prevent the loss of a military career, the loss of personal freedom, and worst of all, the loss of life. Take control of your own destiny. Choose to never drink and drive.
Good
Good morning. You're listening to AFN Morning Newswatch. I'm Chief Petty Officer Jacqueline Keel with a look at your European weather forecast. Germany, mostly cloudy skies with light fog this morning, highs in the 30s and 40s. The Benelux, also mostly cloudy skies with dense fog in the morning, highs will be in the mid-30s. The United Kingdom, cloudy skies and rain in the morning, becoming mostly cloudy this afternoon with highs in the low 50s. Spain will have partly cloudy skies with highs in the low 60s. Italy, mostly cloudy with rain this afternoon, highs will be in the 50s. Turkey, partly cloudy skies with highs in the lower 70s. Croatia and Bosnia, cloudy with isolated rain showers this morning and rain this afternoon, highs will be in the upper 40s. Kosovo, cloudy with rain and light fog this morning, highs will be in the low 50s. And Bagram, sunny skies with highs in the mid-60s. And today at your Military Community Bank, $1 US buys 0.9767 euros, 1.40 Swiss francs, and £1 sterling will cost you $1.60.
Level Wednesday. I'm Patrick Singleton at Bloomberg Radio in Tokyo. Here in Japan, we're in the final hour of trading, and computer-related exporters like Sony and Fujitsu are falling after Hewlett-Packard cut its sales forecasts. And mobile phone-related shares like Murata Manufacturing are also on the slide today, after Nokia said network equipment demand will fall for a second year. The Nikkei 225 has shed 2 3/10% to 89.94. Over in Korea, Samsung Electronics is repeating the trend, falling on the news out from HP and Nokia, and the Kospi slumped 2 9/10% to 715. While in Hong Kong, the markets are seeing heavy selling. Stocks like HSBC are falling after UK rival Barclays said profit will drop this year because of bad loan provisions. The Hang Seng has shed 1 4/10% to 10,081, and the index is poised for its biggest drop in more than 3 weeks. Meanwhile, markets in Taiwan, Australia, and Singapore are also seeing declines today. Right now, $1 US buys you 124.85 yen. S&P futures down 3 points, NASDAQ futures down 7.5 points. And that's a Bloomberg market.
We've had a few questions about the number of informational announcements you see on AFRTS TV. Most stateside programming comes to us with many commercial breaks. AFRTS is prohibited from showing stateside commercials, so those breaks are covered with announcements or other informational material. But the number of announcements is never more than the number of commercials seen stateside.
You're doing an announcement about the number of announcements you do?
Well,
why don't you just do one less announcement?
Because of the breaks, we don't always have a choice.
United Nations inspectors are off to a good start in Iraq, but a huge question remains unanswered. Does either side really want the inspections to work? I'm Steve Roberts, and this is the ABC News Journal. President Bush has never had much confidence in the United Nations, but he was forced to seek a new resolution on Iraq for 2 reasons. Critical allies like France and Russia demanded it, and American public opinion strongly urged the administration to act in concert with an international coalition. To its credit, the White House did a masterful job of negotiating and produced a toughly worded resolution that passed unanimously in the Security Council. Now the question is, what happens next? Actually, that question has 2 parts, and the first rests with Saddam Hussein, who has now promised to cooperate with the inspectors. His entire history contradicts his words, but it's at least possible that his instincts for survival will kick in and that he will try to stave off annihilation by finally coming clean with his store of weapons. The second question concerns George Bush. How serious is he about giving the UN inspectors a chance to succeed? If Saddam does make an effort to cooperate, and that's a very big if, will President Bush be able to take yes for an answer? Or is he so determined to rid the world of Saddam, the man who tried to kill his father, that no compromise is possible? The answers to these questions will determine whether the next few months will bring war or peace to Iraq. I'm Steve Roberts, ABC News.
A 13-year-old philosopher. I'm Michael Weinfeld with the Entertainment Report.
It's about how there's only, God.
He's only 13, but one of the stars of the miniseries Taken is already debating the meaning of life. Anton Yelchin's philosophy is to enjoy life while he can.
I've constructed this neo-idealist philosophy based on Kant and Plato and stuff. My philosophy on life is how to live life is just to enjoy it.
Harry Potter, such an honor.
Even though his last film was nearly X-rated, producer David Heyman says Alfonso Cuarón is the right guy to direct the next Harry Potter movie. Heyman says Y Tu Mama Tambien has a theme that's similar to Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
It was about the tail end of being a teenager. Harry Potter, it's about the first blushes of being a teenager. And it's about that moment when you discover that the demons are not from without, but they're from within.
I wanted a little baby to walk around the house going, Mommy!
And now she has one. Rosie O'Donnell's girlfriend, Kelly Carpenter, has given birth to a baby girl. They named her Vivian. I'm Michael Weinfeld.
Good morning. It is 6:59 Central European Time. You're listening to AFN's Morning Newswatch on the Power Network. I'm Army Sergeant Hank Manitrez, and good morning to Air Force Sergeant Steve German.
Good morning. We've got some wacky news hot off the press. Wildlife inspectors at Alaska's largest airport have seen it all, from the traveler who tried to hide a monkey under her big hat to the woman who had a bear gallbladder stuffed in her bra. The Anchorage Airport, a hub for flights to Russia and the Far East, is the biggest cargo airport in the U.S. The items seized are illegal outright and require permits to possess. One favorite seizure was in 1995 when a woman traveling from Korea passed through customs wearing a very large hat. There was a monkey underneath it. So, is that a monkey under your hat, or are you just happy to see me?
And when Morning Newswatch continues.
Federal racketeering and tax evasion laws can be used against violent street gangs.
LA's new police chief cracking down on gang violence. Will have details when Morning Newswatch begins in just a moment. Good morning. It is 7 o'clock Central European Time. This is AFN's Morning Newswatch. Good morning. I'm Army Sergeant Hank Manitrez.
We're live from the AFN News Center in Frankfurt, Germany. I'm Air Force Sergeant Steve German. Good morning, Europe. Here are your headlines.
A UN weapons inspections team official says Iraq tried but failed to import aluminum tubes. The U.S. says such tubes could be used to build a nuclear bomb. Iraqi General Hossam Mohammed Amin denies that.
This is untrue. This is, as you saw, this is a tube which was available in Iraq since 1998. Since 89, before the war even, before 1991.
President Bush's march toward war got a boost yesterday. CBS News correspondent David Martin says it came through backdoor channels.
Saudi Arabia, which has been all over the map in its public statements about whether or not it would support the U.S. in a war, has privately told the U.S., not publicly, but privately told the U.S. that it would allow U.S. warplanes to have overflight rights over Saudi territory, and it would allow the U.S. to use a sophisticated command center, which the U.S. has put up at Prince Sultan Air Base, which is outside Riyadh in the center of the country.
But it appears Turkey is backpedaling. It had sounded like an offer to give the U.S. access to its military bases if the UN votes for war on Iraq, but now Turkey says there's been no such decision.
Winona Ryder should do community service, get drug counseling, and pay $26,000 in fines and restitution for stealing from a Saks Fifth Avenue. That's a prosecutor's recommendation in a legal memo filed in advance of the actress's sentencing. In the memorandum, Deputy District Attorney Ann Rundle also reveals that Ryder possessed 8 different pain-killing prescription drugs when she was arrested at the Beverly Hills department store last year. The presence of drugs was raised in support of the prosecutor's recommendation that Ryder receive drug and psychiatric counseling.
Some military news here in Europe. General Montgomery Meigs handed over command of U.S. Army Europe and 7th Army after 4 years in command to General B.B. Bell in a ceremony yesterday. The new USAR commander comes to Europe from Fort Hood, Texas, and he told the troops assembled their presence in Europe is needed now more than ever.
Today, USAR, our nation, and freedom-loving people everywhere are challenged by a range of threats, including an insidious and vicious terrorist network. I also know that every soldier, civilian, and family member within this command stands ready to meet the future with the same intensity, commitment, and professionalism as in the past.
That was General B.B. Bell, the new commander of U.S. Army Europe. AFN's Morning Newswatch time is now 3 minutes past the hour.
A spokesman for an American task force searching in Laos says they may have found the remains of the first U.S. casualty of the war in Vietnam. 3 people, including 2 Americans, died in May 1954 when their plane was shot down during the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, which was waged between the Vietnamese and the French 7 years before the United States officially entered the Vietnam War. Killed were the pilot, Captain James McGovern Jr., co-pilot Wallace Buford, and an unidentified French flight engineer. The 3 men were on a secret CIA mission to airdrop artillery to French troops.
The threat of a bio attack is still a hot topic at the White House. CBS News correspondent Cheryl Atkinson says the president is wrestling with a decision whether to begin a nationwide inoculation program against smallpox.
Even if you are vaccinated as a child, the protection has likely worn off. So hundreds of millions of people will be considering the risks and benefits of getting the shot. What's been a difficult decision for the president will likely be difficult for the public, too.
Weighing the potential risks, including death for every 1 or 2 in a million. If you do the math for the entire country, that means hundreds will die getting protection against a potential threat.
4 different environmental groups are suing the Bush administration to block changes that would allow more people to ride snowmobiles in Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks. The AP's James Lindbach has more from Washington.
The Interior Department proposal, no limits would be placed on snowmobiles this winter, and starting next winter, no more than 1,100 snowmobiles a day would be allowed in the parks and a portion of the roadway connecting them. The new rules would allow more snowmobiles in the parks on average, while cutting numbers on the busiest day.
The environmental groups want a judge to keep rules that were imposed during the Clinton administration.
And in your weather watch this morning, North and Central Europe can expect mostly cloudy skies, highs in the 30s and 40s. And in Southern Europe, partly cloudy skies to mostly cloudy skies, highs in the 50s and 60s today.
And in today's exchange rates, $1 US buys 0.9767 euros, and 1 British pound costs $1.60 today at your military community banking facility. It's 5 past the hour.
In our world wrap, aiming to curb an alarming high suicide rate, especially among young women in rural areas, mental health experts have opened China's first clinic dedicated to preventing people from killing themselves.
The Philippine military plans to create a U.S.-backed strike force that could be rapidly deployed against local terrorists and insurgents and used in UN peacekeeping work. The plan reflects a deepening U.S. involvement in Philippine efforts to stamp out terrorists linked to al-Qaeda.
Yesterday, Israeli troops fired on a car traveling down a West Bank road closed to Palestinians, killing a 95-year-old Palestinian woman. Since Israeli-Palestinian violence broke out 2 years ago, nearly 2,000 Palestinians have been killed and 684 Israelis.
Egypt's top appeals court has ordered a retrial for an Egyptian-American sociologist, overturning his conviction for tarnishing the nation's image with his writings on democracy and for alleged financial crimes by his think tank. And that's your World Wrap to 6 minutes past the hour.
Volvo is recalling 65,000 cars because seat heaters could short-circuit and catch fire. The AP's Ed Donahue has more.
1996 Volvo 854s and 855s equipped with seat heaters are being recalled. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says excessive compression of the seat cushion could damage the electrical wiring of the seat heater and cause a short.
Passengers on the Carnival cruise ship Fascination say they're taking precautions to prevent a repeat of an outbreak that made nearly 200 passengers sick on the previous cruise. Passenger Craig Sherman says the crew talked to them before the cruise started.
They were giving us some handouts as we entered the parking lot and again as we entered the ship, suggesting that, friendliness is our best defense. We needed to take anything like an Imodium AD for stomach or anything like that, then go ahead and take it.
The ship left the port of Miami Monday night.
Child abuse, drug use, adultery. It's a distasteful list, but those are some of the allegations in the personnel files of the Boston Archdiocese. WBZ reporter Mark Caddick says abuse victims are releasing the documents in an effort to prove that Cardinal Bernard Law routinely transferred priests rather than address accusations against them.
The documents show the Boston Archdiocese on several occasions reassigned priests despite sex abuse allegations. One priest swapped cocaine for sex. Another built a house on Cape Cod for a woman with whom he carried on an 8-year affair. Dave Clossie, National Director of Survivor Group SNAP, hopes the documents rally parishioners.
When they see the range of years of offenses, I think it will further energize lay Catholics.
One Vatican letter advised the Archdiocese to move abusive priests to new towns unless a scandal could be avoided.
The new Los Angeles police chief revealed his tactics to deal with his most pressing problem, that's gang violence. CBS's Lou Miliano has more.
William Bratton says he'll seek federal help to use racketeering and tax evasion laws against gang members, some of the same tactics used to combat the mafia in New York City. Gang-related murders have soared in recent months, particularly in South Central L.A.
Over U.S. and Israeli objections, the UN General Assembly overwhelmingly approved 6 resolutions yesterday, criticizing Israeli policies and calling for new efforts to bring peace to the Middle East. In an annual ritual, the 191-member world body ended a 3-day Mideast debate with lopsided votes demanding a speedy resumption of the peace process, a final settlement between the Israelis and Palestinians, and an Israeli withdrawal from the Golan Heights. The resolutions are not legally binding, as Security Council resolutions are, but they are a reflection of world opinion. Each resolution received over 100 yes votes, with some 160 nations voting.
In more military news, out in the desert of Qatar, hundreds of U.S. troops put the final touches on a mobile command center, the staging ground for a computer war game that comes as the United States threatens war on nearby Iraq. Led by General Tammy Franks, the exercise, codenamed Internal Look, will test the ability of the U.S. military's Central Command to control and direct Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marine forces during hostilities in the Persian Gulf and while playing of war games, including field exercises from a portable headquarters, is routine for the military. This version is a bit unusual. It's the first time Central Command has set up a portable headquarters, basically prefab buildings and communications equipment outside the United States.
And when AFN's Morning Newswatch continues, we'll have today's European weather forecast, U.S. dollar exchange rates, along with business and financial news. And
a defiant Saddam Hussein has stepped up attacks against coalition aircraft like the Super Hornets, and pilots run the risk of getting shot down during routine patrols of Iraq's southern no-fly zone.
An AFN special report from on board the USS Abraham Lincoln. It's now 10 minutes past the hour. AFN's Morning Newswatch continues.
Hey, Frank, how was your trip to London?
Incredible. The sights, the people, the food. I saw the Colosseum, the Vatican. I went to Sicily, Naples.
Whoa, wait a minute. That isn't London. You're describing Italy.
Right.
I thought you were going to England.
I was, but a flight to Italy was the only space-age flight available, so I took it. And what a vacation. Anyway, I've already been to England.
Really? When?
Well, remember that time I was going to Italy?
Oh, yeah.
With a little flexibility, you'll find that space-age travel can take you to parts of the world you'll be glad you visited.
Attention soldiers. Before requesting your official military personnel file via the interactive voice or web response system, please check your address on the worldwide locator from any government computer. You can do this on www.erec.army.mil. Checking your address will ensure that you receive your OMPF in a timely manner and that your request is not missent. The Enlisted Records Evaluation Center, making things happen for soldiers.
Just when you thought you were too scared to log on to the internet.
Honey, no, don't do it.
But I have to. AFIS.com.
It's the quick and easy way to get all the info you need.
AFIS.com.
Store locations, operating hours, and much more.
AFIS.com.
What is it?
My shoes are on sale.
AFIS.com. Don't be scared.
Parents, here's your chance to directly influence your child's education. Take the Dodds Customer Satisfaction Survey now through December 13th. The survey will be available on the web at odedodea.edu. That address again is odedodea.edu. Parents without access to the internet will have other opportunities to complete the survey. Dodds Customer Satisfaction Survey now through December 13th. Help Dodds help your child.
12 minutes past the top of the hour now. AFN's Morning Newswatch continues. I'm Air Force.
Rally to me. For your homes and hearths, strike. In the name of your sacred dead, strike. Let no heart be faint.
It took 8 months of hard fighting, more than 60 amphibious landings, and the largest naval action of the war to secure the Philippines. In Leyte Gulf, the enemy lost 4 carriers, 3 battleships, 19 destroyers, and 10,000 men. The U.S. not only controlled the Philippine Sea, but managed to knock the Japanese Navy out of the war. MacArthur's return to the Philippines, an event that helped shape the outcome of World War II.
Now, the rest of the story. Jim was being a nuisance, so much of one that Mr. Durband, the director of the school play, stopped the rehearsal cold. What seemed to be the problem, Mr. Durband asked. And Jim, eyes dancing with mischief, pointed to himself, feigning astonishment that he had been singled out as the cause of some disturbance. Of course, Jim was quite often the cause of some disturbance, especially of late.